Hello, I'm Lisa Burkhart Worley, and welcome to Pop Talk, the show where you never know what subjects might pop up. What do you do when disaster strikes? I've had relatives that have endured hurricanes. I have a cousin that was in a tornado, and all that was left when she came back was a file cabinet. Well, today, that's terrible. So today we're going to be talking to a young woman, Rachelle Fletcher, who's going to tell us about her project with her husband that reaches out to people who have been through disasters. They're helping them all over the world. But before we introduce her properly, I'm going to introduce my co-host today. On my far right is Rosemary LeGrand.
Hello, everyone.
And to my immediate right, Dr. Lynette Sim.
Hello.
Well, we're so excited to introduce this friend of ours. Her name's Rachelle Fletcher. She's a speaker, she's a worship leader, she's a songwriter, she's a pro-life advocate, and she is the host of a television program called Goodness Speaks, seen on one of our networks as well, Life Network for Women. But today we're going to mainly focus on Rachelle's Goodness Project that she founded with her husband, Bill. It's a nonprofit organization that provides resources to hundreds of other nonprofits and churches and target the most essential resources to children and families in crisis. Yes, those are those people that come out when you've had a terrible event, a crisis, a hurricane, something like that. And they're the ones, they're some of the first responders that go and help the people. They reach out to DFW, Nashville, Buffalo, Canada, and Israel. But I know they've done some hurricane relief as well locally. So we're going to hear all about it. And we're so excited to have you, Rachelle. We're just glad to have you on Pop Talk. There is so much to talk about here. We were just discussing it before the show. But mainly we want you to talk about the Goodness Project. And that's what we were discussing about the disaster relief. Tell us how this all started.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you ladies today. It really started when my husband and I were pastoring a church. We were pastoring a small church, and we saw the need in our community. We actually saw a guy digging through the dumpster for food. And he came to me and said, Rachelle, there's a guy digging through the dumpster. What should we do? And I'm like, well, let's feed him. And the Lord just spoke to us about reaching out to our community. There was apartments behind the church. We found out they were low-income apartments. Many in the area started coming to us for food. And these are people that are working, low-income families that needed a little extra help. It was a way to show the goodness of God. It's an honor to show his goodness to people in need. Really, that's what Jesus did.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes. So it was just a way for us to reach out to that community, let them know we love them. Not just here, we want to give you food, but here, come in so we can share with you the goodness of God. So we'd start doing outreaches and then invite them to come in. And by that time, many people would receive Christ.
And that's really the best way to show Jesus' love, right?
Yeah.
Is you show them the goodness. You don't necessarily preach at them,
No.
but you take care of their basic needs. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Wow.
we just reach out to them and find out what their needs were and provide from there. And have a lot of faith. It was a big step of faith because we didn't have any money at the time. We had no food. We had no resources. We didn't have a warehouse. We didn't have trucks. We just said, hey, we want to get some food. And so started reaching out to the community to see who wanted to give. And different companies wanted to give, and we started getting more and more people that wanted to donate items to us. And then after we moved locations several times, people started catching the vision. They wanted to give financially. We needed more space, so we were able to get a warehouse to store some of the resources. And every time we got a warehouse, the Lord would fill it up.
Wow.
Fill it up. We kept pouring it out.
Wow.
He'd fill it up. We kept pouring it out. We need more warehouse. We need bigger space. The more we did that, the church would grow, people would catch the vision. And then one day we decided to do a big outreach. We were in Haltom City at this time, and there were so many needs in that community. There was a lot of elderly, there was a lot of low-income families. And Bill came to me one day and he said, hey, Rachelle, I think we should invite 10,000 people to come. I'm like, do you know how much we have in the bank? Do you understand how much
Fishes and loaves, Rachelle. Fishes and loaves.
Right. This was our early life. I'm a woman of faith. And so I'd go to the Lord and I'd say, Lord, okay, if you give us the vision, you're going to give us the provision.
Yeah.
And he did. And every time that we would make agreement in faith that that's what we were supposed to do, we would just begin to ask. And, Mike Barber would loan his tents to us, and other people would give their time. Other people would give resources. And we had that outreach, and 10,000 people did show up. and 10,000 people received food and toys, and we did that every year for 3 years. And then it became the Goodness Project after that. It's awesome.
Wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just listening to you. You know, there's a in the scripture it says that we are the hands and feet of Jesus,
Yeah.
and I think that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
You know, so could you explain, or could you tell us a little bit more about how it works? You know, what are the type of things you provide, and how do you get the needs to supply in crisis?
That's a great question, Rosemary. We when we first started out, we just started doing food, you know, because that was the need. And as we've grown into all these locations now, as you mentioned, Dallas, Fort Worth, Buffalo, Nashville, Canada, and Israel, we're in Israel as well, we were able to acquire a lot of different resources from big companies like Amazon, Walmart, Costco, all the major outlets. And so we'll get these donations into our main resource. We have a 150,000 square foot warehouse right here in Fort Worth, Texas. That's our largest, that it really is our world global center. And then all these other ones are distribution centers. And so we bring everything in there, and then we sort from there, get volunteers to come help and sort. And then we also have resource centers for churches and nonprofits. So we have partners, the churches and nonprofits can partner with us, and then they can come get those resources, and then it becomes the loaves and fishes multiplication, getting it out to those in need from there. And so we there's a lot of logistics to take care of the incoming product. When I tour people through, they're always like, how do you keep up with all this stuff? I'm like, I don't. My husband does.
I
The team does.
was thinking an overwhelming project in my mind.
And then just, you know, how do you get it overseas? How do you get it to Israel? You have to go get it on containers to go to Israel. And then in Israel, well, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But yes. So.
Awesome.
Because you are talking about Israel, but you're based in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that's where everything started. How did you start to branch out? And then, like, I mean, Buffalo, New York, and even Canada I could see, but then we jumped all the way to Israel?
Yeah.
Explain that. How do we help over there?
Well, you know, my husband's Canadian, and so he always wanted to reach Canadians in his hometown. We did an outreach there, and then it just kind of grew from there. And he has family there as well that kind of got the itch to get involved. So his sister helps run Canada, and then he has another sister in Buffalo that runs that distribution center.
Oh, good.
And then we have my son-in-law and daughter help run the Nashville organization. So this is a family, it's a family business, really, in all the locations. But in Israel, the way we got started there was someone paid our way to go to Israel for my 50th birthday. I won't tell you how many years ago that was, but I really had a desire to go to Israel for my 50th birthday. And my husband didn't really desire to go, but the Lord answered our prayer. Someone paid our way to go. So we go to Israel, we see all the biblical sites, but we also tour through some neighborhoods that were very, very much in need. And some of the gentlemen came to my husband and said, would you ever consider bringing the Goodness Project to Israel? And at first he said, oh, we don't know the culture here. We don't, you know, our products are different. You know, he just kind of said no at the beginning. Yeah. And in my spirit, I was like, we're supposed to be here. I know we're supposed to be here. But of course, it's normally him pushing me, saying you need to do this and we need to do this. And I'm going, how much does it cost? But I knew at that moment we were supposed to be in Israel, but I didn't know how it was all going to play out. So we come back home, and he ends up going to a conference in Washington, D.C., for one of the organizations that helps supply some of our resources. And he runs into a Jewish man that they were at a round table. And this Jewish man says, would you be able to get some of those resources to us? We have such a need. And so God just began to set it up. And in faith, Bill goes to New York to one of their events, and then flies back to Israel, and he really gets the tour. And he says, Rachelle, we've got to bring the Goodness Project here. I'm like, I know. I already knew this.
It's finally getting it, right? You know, men. No, I'm sorry.
No, it's usually the other way around. I caught his faith. faith.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I love it. Like you said, it's a family affair. Now, Israel's not easy right now. There's just a lot going on. They've kind of shut down the place. And I was just talking to a pastor over there, and he said, just pray for us right now. It's just really bad. People are very depressed, and because of the way they've shut down. And so are you having trouble with Israel right now as far as getting things there?
It's definitely been a challenge. We've had favor, a lot of favor. We were, before the shutdown, before COVID and all that happened, we were connected with someone there, a PR company, who got us really connected with the government there. So each mayor of every city we're connected with. And so when COVID hit and all the economic challenges started coming, they reached out to the Goodness Project. Hey, do you have any resources? And we're like, actually, we shipped 7 containers full during COVID.
Wow.
Had no problem getting the containers over there. Everybody said, you'll never do it. You'll have to pay all this tax. We had such favor from the Lord. We got it all there, and it was ready to distribute. So they reached out, said, hey, we have these families that are in need. They're lonely. There's some children that need toys. We actually work in the region of Eshkol, which is near the Gaza border, where so many children, they have 15 seconds to get to safety when the bombs come over. Actually, they send over these balloons now that are actually bombs. And so the children there are at risk. They're at risk.
Wow.
And so we've partnered with several organizations, with the mayor there. He actually had his leg blown off. And so he's a wooden leg now, but he has given us the gym. So when we do distribute, we have another warehouse close by. We bring all those toys there. We have a team there that helps bring all the resources there. And recently, just last week, I had a call from our team, and they got me on the phone. You know, it's good that you can be on video. And they're like, Rachelle, they're crying. They're laying down on the floor crying. They're saying, I can't believe you're bringing all these resources over here. They're just so in need. They're so lonely. They didn't know anybody cared about them. So every time I get a call like that, I just say, you know what? All the expense is worth it. It was definitely a step of faith to send all of that stuff there. We're believing that God's going to return the things that we have paid for already. But when we hear those stories, we're like, we're not going to stop no matter what. So it's been challenging. To answer your question, it's definitely been challenging, but because we have people in Israel that know the culture and that have made those connections with each of the mayors in every city. And now we have warehouses in distribution centers in the north, and in Samaria, which is close to Jerusalem area, and in the south by Eshkol, so we can help all those children at risk by the border. That's a big project.
I love how God, you took the leap of faith. It's kind of like what we did with this television show. We took the leap of faith and we shot it on my phone, and we shot it sideways the first time. And then God brought Connor Lee and Grace Point Media, and then now we're in a studio with cameras. And I mean, but it's just, he asks you sometimes to take this leap of faith, and his yoke is easy and his burden is light, and then he provides everything that you need, and he'll direct you where you need to go, just like he did. And Canada, you mentioned Canada. Now, my husband does a lot of work in Canada, and so I go up there with him a lot. And so one time I had lunch with your husband's cousin, Sherry Stahl, who is also in ministry, but she helps you guys. And so can you talk just about the family affair this is? How you're, I think you've got a family member in your son
in Nashville, my son-in-law and daughters. Both my daughters work with us there.
Okay, so how, do you have like team meetings with your family? I mean, how do you make this work?
Yes,
with
Christmas
family?
dinner's got to be real interesting.
Christmas dinner's a little interesting sometimes, and the family dynamic's never easy. We have to put on different hats, and we definitely have team meetings. We have staff meetings with all of our staff, which isn't just our family, but our family is so dedicated, believes so much in what we're doing. And I just thank God for that. And I love the fact that they can do something that means something so deep to the Lord, to his heart, to give to the needy. And we don't want to be the only ones doing this. The reason why we do this is so that everyone can create this movement of goodness. Everybody can show God's goodness. Everybody can give something of substance to someone in need. It doesn't have to be just the Goodness Project, So that's why we do it. But it's challenging sometimes, when I'm talking to my kids about business, and they're like, Mom, can we just not talk about business right now? So we have to create strong systems and boundaries, and we're growing very fast. And I think someone asked the question earlier, like, how did you get to all these cities? We were asked to go. And my husband said, well, if somebody will get a grant or pay for the warehousing, we'll go. And so they did. They paid for the warehousing, and we just opened up those locations in faith. We had like the first 6 months paid for, and so we just did it. And then the Lord began again. Every time we would get a warehouse, He'd fill it up, and it's like full and over.
It's good like that, right?
Literally full and over, and we keep giving it out, and He keeps filling it. That's just who our God.
Wow, that's how it
every
is.
area.
Awesome.
Yeah, endless
Awesome.
supply.
Yeah.
Now, you're not stringent in just these areas. I know when there's a huge crisis, you and your husband or the guys, you all just get together.
Yes.
For an example, when Hurricane Harvey, Category 4 hurricane hit, you all guys were right there, in Louisiana. Tell me about how do you all cope with all these disasters?
Well, that's a very good, loaded question. COVID-19 is a disaster. It's like one long disaster. It started last year in March. But Hurricane Harvey when it's a hurricane or a flood or anything like that, it's very quick response. You have to be ready. So we actually prepare for that in advance. We have a disaster relief section in our warehouse, and everything is stored in advance so that when those disasters hit, we're ready. We have trucks available. We have drivers ready. We know which supplies need to be taken, which is typically, like safety equipment or hygiene, a lot of hygiene, because they don't have any running water. So we need wipes available for people to just wash with. And so we actually have those things on site. And actually, when Hurricane Harvey hit, I thought of someone who is actually connected to Christian Women in Media, right? Because you have the network of people that you know, and as you grow in the Lord and as you grow in ministry, you start meeting more people. So we were able to connect with one of the churches there that Kathy Banks happens to be pastoring, and we connected with another church. And so we always connect with churches in that area where we can take the resources to them immediately, as quickly as possible, as soon as we can get in there, because after a disaster hits, sometimes you can't get in there for a few weeks. Sometimes it can be a few days, depending on what happens.
Right.
So we just take the supplies there, and then we coordinate all of the distribution with that church and getting all the resources out to the families as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
I mean, how fast can you react to that kind of stuff?
We can be there in a day. I mean, we already have the stuff ready, so we can load the trucks and get there in a day if we need to.
That's amazing.
And you help so many people in so many different areas, whether it's a crisis or not. But what is the feedback that you're getting from these people? Could you share a couple of stories? Does anybody come back and say, the Goodness Project saved? Share.
Yes. You know what? Every time we go, like for a disaster relief, those families, we'll go into an area where they've lost everything. They've literally lost their beds, they've lost their pictures, they've lost their coffee machines. So we'll come in with all these resources, and they get to pick out what they want. We've done things where we went in and just did mattress outreaches, handed out mattresses to families depending on what the need is. Yeah. And they every time have the same response. We just want to thank you so much. We cannot believe you're good. You don't even know us, and you're giving to us, and we're like, it's not from us, it's from God. But just having that response to know that means just a simple resource of something that they lost. That they got, and they'll say, and this is brand new, because we do brand new things. We don't do used. We do brand new things. We feel like it's the best to give the best. And so everything we have is new. It's returned items, but it's new. So some of the things are returned, but we don't want to give junk. Like when we had our food bank, when we first started, people would give us all their used clothing with stains on it or expired food, and we're like, no, you don't want that. So why would we give that? So now we give the best. And so the response every time is, wow, I can't believe you're giving me this brand new coffee maker, like nice coffee maker, or brand new mattress, who wants a used mattress, so, or single moms when they come in and they don't have anything for their children, or families that have lost things from losing their jobs at COVID, and I had one gentleman come in, and his check from the government was delayed. Because he was on disability. So it was delayed because of COVID. And he came in, he has 4 children, his wife was working 2 jobs, trying to hold everything together, and he was holding his head low. And he walked into our resource center and I said, come over here, let's get you, what do you need? He goes, I just need some toothpaste. I just need some deodorant. Just simple things that we take for granted. And I'm like, we will load you up. And I said, and you need to hold your head up. You do not need to be ashamed. We've all been in these positions and places, and I began to tell him our story, how we lost everything at one time. And boy, by the time we were finished, he was holding his head up, and and of course the tears flowed from his face, of course, and I cried with them, because I know how hard and difficult it is to not have anything. I've been through that myself. I haven't been without a home, but I've been without stuff, and so I know what it's like, and just try to love on them and share the love of Jesus with them.
So when you get this call, or you see a hurricane, barreling down on maybe the Texas coast or into Louisiana or something like Harvey did. Yeah. What do you do? Do you get a truck ready? I mean, do you start loading everything up?
Yes.
Didn't you go? Didn't you go to the site?
I didn't go to Harvey. Let's see. I had 2, my husband and another gentleman went to take the resources to Harvey, but I did a lot of the phone calling. I do a lot of the coordinating over the phone, just making sure the churches get connected with, and talked to Kathy several times on the phone.
Right.
And she, at the time their church got demolished, but they had another building that they could store resources in. So we have to make sure we have a place to put it when we go, because our trucks don't stay. So it's just coordinating all those things.
And so do people know about you? Like, for example, we all see the news and we say, oh my goodness, this is going to hit. Well, did they call you up? I mean, did they know about you?
The people who know us do. They'll be like, hey, we want to go help. We get a lot of people wanting to volunteer. And of course, it's real hard to have volunteers go because you can't get people into those places until weeks after.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, just hang tight. We'll have volunteers that can go. So at the beginning, it's just just preparing. We actually have apps on our phone. So when a hurricane or a storm hits, we're like, there it comes. We better get the stuff ready. Start getting it, put aside. So, but we do that in advance to where it's ready to go. All we have to do is get the trucks loaded. But we watch the storms, like storm trackers,
So I don't know how in the world she can do anything else but what she's doing here, but she does a lot of other things. And you do a television show, as we mentioned at the beginning, on Life Network for Women, Goodness Speaks. Does it tie into the Goodness Project? Or?
It does. It does.
Tell us about that.
The Lord gave me the idea for that when I was at a conference at Bethel Church, and it was just called Creativity Conference, and they were asking us to dream about something that we wanted to do. And I was in one of those meetings, and the Lord just prompted this idea in my heart to start a show to talk about the goodness of God and how His voice speaks and how goodness actually becomes the voice of God in the earth. And many times we talked about the impact of people, right, Lisa? But there's an impact on us. There's something that happens to us when we get to give. There's a joy in being able to give, and we don't always talk about that. So on Goodness Speaks, we talk about life-inspiring stories, about these families that receive, about hurricane and disaster relief. But we also talk with our partners about what they do with the resources that they get from us and all the stories, and then the joy that they have in being able to give.
And it is true. It's more blessed to give than to receive.
Yes.
Although it's my birthday this week and I'm a receiver. You should.
You are such a fabulous singer and songwriter. And recently you are our worship leader on our monthly pop chat.
Yes.
And then you were phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your music story, and tell us if you have any new projects in the make.
I enjoyed leading worship. That's one of my, when time stands still, when you do something and time stands still, that's what happens when I lead worship or any type of music. I've been singing since I was 2 years old. And there's something about worshiping God that takes you to another sphere.
Yes.
It takes you to another dimension, and His presence just changes everything. And I grew up in a family that did music. From 2 years old, I was singing on the stage. Even when I had diapers on, I was singing. But music has just been a way to cope. And both my girls sing now, and it's been this way that when life has been really difficult, I'll just get on the piano and I'll just start worshiping, and God will give me a song, and I'll write a song. So in 2018, we had a very devastating desert season, about 7 years, where we lost everything except our home. And the Lord gave me the idea for this song called Water in My Desert. Wow. So it's not a new project, but that's the latest song that I've written because I've been busy doing all these other things for the Goodness Project. But I am really looking forward to it. I'm actually talking to an artist right now. I won't say his name because it's not for sure. Yeah. But there is a big name artist that is thinking about writing a song with us so that we can use it for our Israel project. So you can be praying that comes through. Yeah. And then we're connected in Nashville too, and we're working on some other projects there. So I know in time there'll be a lot more music. But for right now, as a mom, I'm really like helping my kids. They're both in music and helping support them. And but I tell you what, there's nothing like singing and worshiping the Lord, and I absolutely just love it. Anytime I can sing, I'll sing.
It's true though, because I love the word, but I get a different encounter with praise and worship.
It's God's address.
And there's more.
Yes.
There's more.
There is more.
You are also working with the pro-life advocates, and you have worked with the Human Coalition for years. I make a joyful noise, but only God loves to hear that. Yeah. So why don't you tell us about an organization that doesn't require singing?
Yes.
Sure. Well, back after our disaster, our desert season, which really was a disaster.
Yes.
It's funny how it's like mirrors, what we do. It's like you're tested in what you do.
That's what I was just thinking.
Right? It mirrors.
Like you went through something like that. Now you're helping others who go through things like that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think we have even more of a passion, and it grew even more after that. But in this kind of pause that we were in, actually we started all over in 2014. Bill started all over with the Goodness Project. We had a pause because we had this financial crisis. And during that time, I went to work with a pro-life organization called Human Coalition. And I met some amazing men and women that were advocates for life. And I was asked to come on their team to start their first women's care clinic, which is like a pregnancy center, except they reach the abortion determined. That's a different group than planning to carry. So they reach those women that are actively online seeking for abortion. And so they find them and then have a way to get them in their care clinics. And so I helped them start the first care clinic in Grapevine. And I worked with them for about 3 or 4 years and went to DC and met with, senators to learn more about what's really happening. It is the biggest issue in our nation.
It is.
It is. The life issue is the biggest issue that we're facing. And so many people believe lies about it. But what I loved about it that really ties into the Goodness Project is that when you're able to reach those women and you invite them in and you provide counseling, you provide churches that connect with them, you provide them diapers. Seriously, if you just provide them diapers and something for their children and they know that you care, you start building a relationship with them, they will choose life.
Wow.
Amen.
Again, it goes back to love.
Yes,
All
love.
back to the love of Jesus
Love of
and just
Jesus.
being available. Not every time would they choose life, but somewhere between 83 and 86%, just providing resources, they would end up choosing life because they knew people were there to walk with them and help them.
Oh, Rachelle, we could talk more and more
I know.
about each and every one of your projects. So thank you so much for being with us on Pop
loved
Talk. I know that many people are going to be grateful for the help that you already do. The Goodness Project provides a lot of resources in the midst of disaster. So if you want to know more about the Goodness Project, all you need to do is go to their website. It's easy, thegoodnessproject.com. If you'd like to listen or maybe talk to Rachelle about her music, you can always navigate to her personal website, which is RachelleFletcher.com.
And we'd love to hear from you here at Pearls of Promise Ministries. We're the people that put this show on, Pop Talk. You can reach us by emailing us at info@pearlsofpromiseministries.com. We have a website, pearlsofpromiseministries.com, and Lynette's book's on there. My books are on there. We've got blogs. All of us blog, and so we'd love for you to check out our blogs. And also, we have a monthly gathering. It's called Pop Chat. It's the last Wednesday of the month every month. And our next Pop Chat, Aurora Ortega-Geis, one of our team members who you don't see here very much, but she was on the shows the last month. She's going to be speaking about how to handle change. And we're going through a lot of change right now, aren't we? Yeah. So she's going to be, and she is a life coach, and so you're going to want to hear what she has to say about change. If you want to join us on Pop Chat, you can join us by just emailing us, info@pearlsofpromiseministries.com. We'll send you a link, and you can sign up.
Special thank you to all of our television networks, Faith Unveiled Network, Paula White's Life Network for Women, King Television, Overcomers TV, and CTF TV. And also a special thank you to our production team today, Grace Point Media.
Well, that's Pop Talk for today. We're just ordinary girls
who God turned into pearls.
Have a great week, everybody.